Alright, so we're about to turn this sphere that we see right here into a base mesh for a human, and you can watch my process here. So, I'm going to start by using my move tool and pulling out the shape of the general head. Then I'm going to mask off the neck, invert that mask, and then pull it with W. Next, I'm going to insert a mesh, a multi-mesh, an IMM primitive for the body, and now the deltoids, and the upper arms and the forearms. So you're just going to lay out your different anatomical pieces like this. If you want to separate these out into separate subtools, that's fine by me. A lot of artists do that. I like to just keep them in one and then use my masking or just the move topological brush to sort of get these pieces refined and kind of in the right spot. You can see that I pretty much the only brushes I've used so far are move topological, insert multi-mesh, a little bit of clay buildup because you saw on those legs, it's kind of hard to get those inside pieces, right? So so you can build up some dimension that way. Instead of like carving into this surface a lot, I'm also using smooth, like the regular smooth brush by holding shift to kind of push back in on those forms. Now I've dynameshed them together. So I have all the basic main anatomy represented. And now I'm trying to actually refine the proportion and the shape and definition of each of those pieces. So I'm looking up some reference. I'm just left click dragging them into my reference program called PureRef. Um, and it's really nice. It just overlays your screen, and you can really start to iron out these different shapes. Um, so notice I'm using my move topological, but at like a larger scale right there. And then I'm noticing that my legs are a little bit stumpy. I'm noticing that that chest isn't popping out as much. So I'm just trying to get those shapes refined. Notice that I'm still at a pretty low resolution for that Dynamesh. Look at that, it's like 32 resolution on that Dynamesh. Like you can see every single poly, and that's kind of where you want to keep your poly count during this. Like we can always divide more after we get these shapes, but we're gonna benefit greatly from getting these sort of represented in there. At this point, I'm using more of my clay buildup tools, and you can still see that I'm using Move Brush all the time. Move Brush is like a 100% necessity. If you're not using the Move Brush, then you're messing up because it's so easy to modify shape. Now I'm kind of doing some overall proportion changes. Now I'm approaching the hands. Notice I split the hands off into a different subtool. I did that with just the split menu under the subtool panel. Now I'm doing an IMM primitive for the finger, and I'm getting that somewhat sculpted into the proper shape of a finger. And then you'll see that I'm going to be doing the thumb right there, kind of getting the basic shape. Because I'm basically following the same workflow that I did for the body, but for the hand, and now I'm getting some hand reference. I really recommend working from reference because there's so much in life that we don't see until we really examine it. Now I just duplicated that subtool of the finger and moved it over because I had a decent finger, might as well just copy it. I believe it's Control Shift D is the hotkey for that, but you can just find it in the subtool panel as well, duplicate. And then I'm just moving it into position. Then I merge those together, and now I'm dynameshing, and I'm trying to find a decent a decent resolution in Dynamesh that's not going to crumple those fingers together, because oftentimes Dynamesh wants you to weld those fingers together. We want to keep them separate though, clearly, because they have to move independently of each other. But yeah, so I'm just doing more manipulation of this hand, kind of really getting its proportions and features represented. I'm trying to use my masks and add a little bit of dimension on some places without touching more delicate areas of the hand. Still just using move topological, a lot of that. I'm using damn standard to make these creases in the fingers. Yeah, if you're ever wondering which brush I'm using, you can always see it in the top left in that brush palette section. It also helps on these like fast videos to sort of play it at 0.25 speed in YouTube, and it will slow down the video. But yeah, just modifying this hand, slowly getting those features represented, and notice that I'm still low poly on the hand, right? Like you can see every single individual polygon on there. I don't want you guys to be working super high at the start. You can go higher later, but well, why not just keep it nice and workable at this point. I'm also using my hide brush to refine the shape of the individual fingers because I notice it's hard to work on them when you're trying to like look through the mesh, you know. So your hide brushes are under Control and Shift. Just remember that. It's gonna be nice and easy to access them that way. And I'm just gonna rotate that hand into position. And back to the body. So we have this body in there. My hand is like a little bit more detailed than my body at this point, so I'm going to keep going back to that and sort of getting those features in there. Remember, always use your reference. Again, I'm using Pure Ref. It's just Pureref. You can Google that and find it. It's really nice to just have the reference overlaying the working space. I find that even when I'm using a dual monitor setup, that like something in the transition between me looking at the other monitor with the reference on it to my regular monitor gets lost in there. So it's just nice to have it on the same monitor. I'm like really refining these legs now, trying to match up the proportion. And now I'm kind of carving out that booty and getting those obliques started, the oblique ab muscles right there. Let's get the traps represented, get those a little bit more defined, get those lats represented as well. I'm just copying what I'm seeing, you know. I'm just copying what I'm seeing on that left hand side of the screen. Nothing magic about it. Basically, the takeaway from this is stay relatively low poly and use your basic brushes, right? And remember, I use clay buildup, and I use clay buildup without an alpha. I just go into the alpha channel and just turn it off, you know. A lot of move, a lot of smooth. 90% of my smoothing is alternate smoothing, so where you start smoothing but then you let go of shift midway through, and then you continue smoothing. It gives it more of a relaxation rather than a kind of digging in on the surface sort of effect. But yeah, I'm just refining the feet. And then, yeah, I use damn standard for making creases like this. Damn standard with a pretty big brush size. And honestly, you should be using more reference than I'm using. I'm only using like one or two guys in there. But yeah, it's important to keep a lot of reference. And then we're finally done. So you have this nice base mesh, and then we can continue and extract clothes out of it, extract shapes, and yeah. So that's how I approach making a base mesh. Thanks for watching.